Mr. Mathis, it's 1-3. We will hold it open. Please proceed to your next bill.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will now address AB 1589. Our state is regularly affiliated by natural disasters, and more are sure to come in the future. In 2014, Governor Brown declared a state of emergency for the present drought afflicting the state. The disasters are far too common throughout California's history and will continue into the future if we remain unprepared to mitigate their effects. In many cases, drought projects could have been undertaken to quickly mitigate or restore the damage done, or even prevent many disasters altogether. However, CEQA regulations have often stand in the way of recovery and mitigation projects by delaying their enactments. It is imperative that projects designed to repair the effects of our most severe droughts are not held up with time-consuming CEQA processes during times of declared drought emergencies. AB 1589 would allow for the exemption of certain projects from CEQA regulations for the duration of the state of emergency, so long as the projects are designed to mitigate the effects of the declared drought emergency. This bill will grant Californians the peace of mind that CEQA regulations have not, the right to recover from the disaster that has befallen our state today. Thank you.
Witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition?
Good afternoon. Kyle Jones with Sierra Club California in opposition today. I'd like to note that the governor already has existing authority to exempt measures throughout emergency proclamations pertaining to the drought, and has done so for things like the emergency conservation regulation that has saved 1.2 almost 4 million feet through the drought. The provisions in this bill would exempt projects that have serious environmental impacts, and while we support these measures, these impacts need to be mitigated. These include stormwater capture and recycled water treatment facilities, the latter of which they're serious. The members of the public are very concerned about recycled water, and so we don't think it's the right approach to build this resource into our system by not providing them information to let them know that it's safe and that the impacts are being mitigated. We think this bill goes too far. We urge a no vote today. Thank you.
Other witnesses in opposition to the committee? There is a motion.
Second.
And a second. Questions from the committee? None? No testimony? I'll just say again that there is a reason why some of the provisions of CEQA are in place. To dispense with them requires some careful planning and meeting of stakeholders. We are working together on your third bill, which is to try to help East Porterville get their recycling water going. But we think something this broad is inappropriate, and the chair's recommendation is a no for the CEQA exemption. Other comments, questions from the committee? Would you like to close?
Mr. Chairman, I thank you for your support and working with me on measures to help those who have been severely hit with the drought, and bringing these measures forward, because I believe that it is imperative for California as a whole to look at measures to help with drought and with future droughts. And I look forward to working with you in the future on our other bill to help the citizens in Tulare County. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion is due pass, and we refer to appropriations. And I also want to mention one other thing, which is that because of this, the governor's state of emergency, that he can suspend CEQA in certain cases. I think Mr. Mathis's intention is to put belt and suspenders but we do not yet have an indication that the state of emergency will be suspended in either case. So that's the other reason why I feel it's premature. The motion is due pass and re-refer to appropriations. Please call the roll.
Williams?
No.
Williams, no. Jones?
Aye.
Jones, aye. Christina Garcia? No. Garcia, no. Gomez? Hadley? Harper? McCarty?
No.
McCarty, no. Stone? No. Stone, no. Wood? No. Wood, no.
Thank you,
Mathis is 1-5. We'll leave that open. And we will grant reconsideration if these bills fail today. Mr. Wilk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Today I present AB 1905. I'd like to thank the committee staff for working with my office, and I will be accepting the suggested committee amendments. What this bill would do require the Secretary of Natural Resources Agency to conduct an independent scientific study to survey the risks associated with the gas industry's practices and provide recommendations which would reflect safe practices. As you know, in my district was the Aliso Canyon gas leak. Over 20,000 people were evacuated for over 100 days. There's 12 of these facilities statewide, and a lot of times there's been encroachment in terms of development, whether it be schools or residential units, and I believe that this is a necessary study in order to ensure the safety of all involved. So with that, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Witnesses in support?
Good afternoon. Corey Bullis on behalf of Environmental Defense Fund. In strong support, we think this is a practical, common sense bill and respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Witnesses in opposition? Questions from the committee? We believe that this study is needed to make sure that we do not have continued issues with natural gas injection. We really appreciate that you brought this forward, Mr. Wilk, and Chair's recommendation is aye. And I believe he mentioned that he's taking the amendments using the term residential development instead of population centers because that's the term that is already used. Thank you, Mr. Wilk. Other comments, questions from the committee? Would you like to close?
I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
The motion is due pass as amended and re-refer to Appropriations Committee. Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Jones?
Aye.
Jones, aye. Christina Garcia? Aye. Garcia, aye. Gomez? Hadley? Harper? McCarty?
Aye.
McCarty, aye. Stone?
Aye.
Stone, aye. Wood?
Yes.
Wood, aye.
Your bill is out already.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Wilk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Going to take Ms. Garcia because her witnesses were here for our first bill and have been very patient.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the chair and the committee and consultants for working with myself on this bill. I'm more than happy to take the amendments suggested by the committee, and I think we have a good template for future stuff. On a personal note, I've been talking about this for 3 years, so thank you again to the committee. Also want to thank Assemblyman Alejo, who already continued his bill, for continuing to work with me and my staff on the larger topic of technical assistance. It's a topic that's important to both of us. By having two bills that address the different aspects of technical assistance, I think that in the end, we're going to have some very thoughtful discussions that will ultimately get cap and trade funding to areas that need it. My bill, AB 2393, creates a green technical assistance program that would assist small businesses and nonprofits in tapping into funds that are out there. Small businesses and nonprofits, not unlike small cities, lack the capacity to go after the funding opportunities. For small businesses, it would be another task for the owner who may not even be aware of these opportunities exist. For small-scale nonprofits, they may not have the scale to employ a person with the expertise necessary. Mujeres de la Tierra, environmental nonprofit focused on healing La Madre Tierra and redefining the traditional green dialogue in Los Angeles, is one of those small nonprofits. The founder of Mujeres, Irma Munoz, wanted to be here today to share her experience, but was not able to fly to Sacramento due to illness. But if she were here, I'm certain she would agree that this issue of capacity for small environmental nonprofits is not a new problem, and that's the problem. We often hear about the importance of equity, particularly in regards to our state's disadvantaged communities, like the district I live in. However, the small nonprofits that service these areas are at a disadvantage in the current competitive ground system. They have to compete in a system where size equals success. And in many ways, small businesses suffer the same problem, lack of scale. In the end, both entities don't have access to benefit their larger counterparts. AB 2393 will help level the playing field. In districts like mine, where nonprofits are small in size and number, technical assistance could help communities access resources that would benefit their local communities and that community-specific issues. All over the state, but also particularly in disadvantaged communities, there are small businesses that are unaware of how small changes could help their bottom line, that there are programs out there to help them do it. AB 2293 would finally help them make that connection. If I have learned anything as a legislator, is that oftentimes a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't always work for everyone. AB 2293, while a work in progress, acknowledges that the current system isn't working for everyone and that those being left out may be those who need it the most. My district, Speaker Rendon's district, have the 5 most polluted cities in LA County, but when we looked at the first funds of cap and trade money, we got the least money in the area, less than 63 cents per person. The issues of technical assistance is far from simple, but I am hopeful that today's discussion will bring us one step closer to finding a thoughtful and workable solution. With me today, I have Director of the California Green Business Program to discuss the obstacles for small businesses in accessing the resources that are available to them.
Thank you. Thanks, Assemblymember Garcia, for introducing us and your important bill, and thank you, Chair Williams and the committee members. My name is Jo Fleming. I'm the Executive Director of the California Green Business Network. I brought some fact sheets with me today, but ran into quite a few people in the halls and distributed them, so I will get more of these to all of you because they do tell our story quite well. And one of the stories I'd like to tell, just to follow on the coattails of Assemblymember Garcia here, is a map that illustrates where we provide technical assistance to small businesses in California. And you can see this gray part of the map that's not covered currently. And that is because these areas have money to start these green business programs. These areas do not. And we have been lucky enough to find grant funding, federal grant funding, to be able to start programs in San Joaquin County, Fresno, and Riverside. And it's been really rewarding to see those programs get off the ground this year. But we want to do it in more counties and provide more green business technical assistance to more of the state. So first, let me just tell you the story of green business. Mid-career as an environmental regulator in the early 2000s, I was inspecting a string of auto repair shops on Auto Row. I was literally chased off a property by big, aggressive mechanics when I told them that they couldn't hose down all the solvent and oil and coolant from their service bays into the storm drain. They'd never been told that before, and so they chased me off the property. They didn't like it. A neighboring business to that one, it was kind of scary, and it kind of made me think there's got to be a better way to work with businesses so that it doesn't have to be as antagonistic. So a neighboring business, who happened to be the president of the Automotive Services Council, said, hey, look, if you show my mechanics what to do, if you make it easy, I'll try and make these changes. We'll see what we can do. So we partnered with the Department of Toxics. We held some workshops. We taught their mechanics how to do this stuff. We even stopped using solvents and switched to aqueous parts cleaners, safer for worker safety and better for the environment. We did a bunch of work. Within a year, we'd certified 7 of our first green auto shops in Santa Cruz, and I fell completely in love with the program. So flash forward to now, 2015, we've certified about 3,000 businesses, over 3,000 businesses up and down the state. These are businesses that voluntarily chose not just to be in compliance with regulatory laws, but they met, in some instances, a 15-page checklist of measures to become certified. They saved money, and they took advantage of rebates available to them. Over 2/3 of the 10,000 people visiting our website every day are there to find a green business. So nothing can be more rewarding for me than to see such a mutually positive way of working together. Businesses volunteer to do the right thing. The government assists them to do that, and the public just eats it up. One of the problems with...
Wrap up.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, it's getting a little long. So we focus on small to medium-sized businesses because they're a huge percentage of the state's individual employers. They're providing jobs to the state's workforce, and they use almost half of our energy in California. Despite all of this, they're underserved by state and utility efficiency and greenhouse gas reduction programs. And they avoid other certification programs because they're expensive and they don't have sustainability staff to do it. So we fulfill that niche for these businesses. And in areas where, in the Central Valley, we're working on business-to-business models. We're implementing tiered programs. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. We're making this work for other communities, and we're achieving success. Over 800,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions reduced. We measure everything we do. Over 400,000 tons of waste diverted from the landfill. So I'll just leave you with the idea that investing in small businesses is investing in the California economy, and investing in small businesses that protect our environment is investing in the economy and our home. Very important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Katrina Robinson here in support on behalf of Valley Clean Air Now. I'll keep my comments short. Cities and counties we've found that are often in the most need of funding are sometimes also the ones that are least able to apply for funds, administer a program, and then also comply with all the state's reporting requirements, especially around cap and trade funding. We are one of the programs that helps cities in the Central Valley meet these requirements, and we very much look forward to working with the author to support this bill. Thank you.
Phoebe Seaton, Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. We are and work with many of the nonprofits that could really use some technical assistance to bring needed investments to the San Joaquin Valley and Coachella Valley, improve conditions throughout the state.
Bill McGavin with the Coalition for Clean Air and Support.
Good afternoon. Danielle Lynch on behalf of Audubon, California, in support.
Jenna Price with the California League of Conservation Voters in support.
Kyle Jones with Sierra Club, California, in support.
Quentin Foster with the California Environmental Justice Alliance in support.
And Mei Wang with the Green Landing Institute in support.
Further witnesses, your name, organization, and your support.
Community Water Center supports. Adela Rodriguez, a favor.
Heidi Lozano, and I support also Somerset County.
Blanca Lozano, Community del High, approve support.
Thank you.
Francisco Mendez from Fresno County, in support. Thank you.
Juventino González Linares Ribedel, Condado de Fresno. Muchas gracias por escucharme.
Gracias.
Marta Moreno de Madera, California, y líder campesina. Gracias por todo y nosotros apoyamos también para que nos apoyen. Thank you.
Alberto Sánchez de la Comunidad Linares. Gracias.
Lalo Carvajal de Linares, vengo a soportar este proyecto. Gracias. Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Dominga Durán. Vengo de Fresno, California, apoyando a todos los que sufrimos de asma, de todo lo que tenemos. Muchas gracias.
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 Connie Hammond, Fresno County, Lanier, California, and support.
Thank you. Witnesses in opposition to the committee. Questions, comments from Mr. Stone?
I think this is an excellent program. I have seen it work in our coastal regions, and to be able to expand it and provide the level of technical assistance that a green business program like this represents really is critical if we're going to be successful in making sure that all businesses, people have an opportunity to understand what's out there, what's available to draw down grants or to comply with state and local rules for environmental health. And whether or not this is funded through GGRF, we're still struggling with the notion of trying to fund things out of GGRF without a bigger picture. But I have been supportive of clear statements that we're trying to make sure we're saying the kinds of communities you should go to, the kinds of programs that should happen. And technical assistance is a clear category that we haven't necessarily addressed very well in the greenhouse gas reduction funding. So I appreciate that you brought this forward. I think this is a clear conversation we need to be having. Whether or not we fund it out of GGRF, we have to fund this. We really have to provide this benefit to our local communities.
Other comments, questions from the committee? Mr. Wood.
Yes, it's a question for the author. Is this based on CalEnviroscreen as far as for the definition of disadvantaged communities?
Yes.
And I would just like to make a comment about that. I represent a substantially rural area. There is very little funding that goes into my rural communities because of the nature of the way funding is, how disadvantaged communities are defined. So, I'm supportive of what you're doing. I just wish that something like this could benefit some of the poor rural communities in my district, which will not get resources because we are not considered disadvantaged, even though one of my counties has the second highest rate of poverty in the state. So I'm very frustrated by that. There often isn't parity for rural communities, especially. We have clean air because we're on the coast, but we still have agriculture. We still have emissions that contribute to greenhouse gases. Yet we pay a disproportionate higher cost because we can't access the resources to help in these cases.
So thank you for that comment, actually. So 75% of the pie is open. And another bill that we're working with is Assemblymember Gomez's bill that starts to address the idea of what happens to our low-income communities who are not in an EPA disadvantaged block to try to create that equity. I think at the end of the day, we're all discussing about creating equity across the state and making sure these dollars go everywhere. And I think sometimes we keep discussing that 25% of the pie that's clearly set aside for disadvantaged communities, but part of a collective effort to make sure we create equity in rural communities like yours, in disadvantaged communities like mine. At the end of the day, I think whether it's economic or air quality disadvantaged communities, they deserve a piece of the pie.
And I would just like to, it's more editorial than anything. I think one of the challenges is that, maybe it would have been better if it had not been called disadvantaged community program. Because, for example, when it comes to water issues in my district, we're considered disadvantaged. When it comes to these kinds of programs, anything related to CalEnviroscreen, we're not. And so how are you disadvantaged in one way and not in another? And so maybe we need to change the semantics around what we're talking about here as we go forward, and maybe in EnviroScreen 3.0 or whatever it is, whatever the next one is that they're working on, we could address that because it's confusing. How do you tell people in Del Norte County that you're disadvantaged when it comes to water projects and water infrastructure projects, but when it comes to these other projects, you're not? And so are you disadvantaged or not? So I would hope as we go forward, we look at the bigger picture, that we really define what we mean by disadvantaged and truly be a definition we can all work with.
Right. I agree. And I think the problem is, or the focus needs to be on that 75% of the pie that's left over for everything else. We keep, I think, going over semantics of that 25%, and it should be open. I think this mechanism creates a way to collect data, be aware of who's not getting to the line, and then creating a system to get those people to the front of the line. And I think that model should be used in everything moving forward, disadvantaged or not, however.
So I thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you.
And are you accepting the amendments that clarify that ARB can advise rather than assist small businesses with complying?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Other questions, comments from the committee? There's been a motion. So moved. Motion by Mr. Stone. Second. Second by Mr. Jones. The chair's recommendation is aye. would you like to close?
Yes. Le quiero dar las gracias a todas las personas que vinieron para dar su testimonio hoy. Es muy importante que sean parte de la conversación. I want to thank the committee and our guests here who came from far away to share their experience and their stories with us today. I think today we're trying to address the problem of making sure that our communities that have the most need are getting to the front of the line, because right now they've been at the back of the line. And so I'm appreciative for that. I'm appreciative for where we're moving forward, and hopeful that this discussion continues on issues beyond just this bill. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Please call the roll.
The motion is due pass as amended and re-referred to Appropriations Committee. Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Jones? Jones, aye. Christina Garcia?
Aye.
Garcia, aye. Gomez?
Aye.
Gomez, aye. Hadley?
Aye.
Hadley, aye. Harper? McCarty?
Aye.
McCarty, aye. Stone?
Aye.
Stone, aye. Wood?
Aye.
Wood, aye.
8-0.
Next.
Next, we'll take Mr. Gomez.
How you doing, sir? Good.
Chair, I'll move the consent calendar.
I'll second that. Let's call the roll on the consent calendar.
The motion is due pass and re-refer to Accountability and Administrative Review Committee. We recommend consent. Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Jones?
Aye.
Jones, aye. Christina Garcia? Garcia, aye. Gomez?
Aye.
Gomez, aye. Hadley? Hadley, aye. Harper? McCarty?
Aye.
McCarty, aye. Stone? Stone, aye. Wood? Wood, aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Gordon.